So we are now more or less happy with our post-processing. Obviously, you want to do more things and want to show more things. So your pipeline here can become quite elaborate, and you don't want to do that manually every single time. So Paraview has a few nice features for automating. So one is that you can save states, and another one is that you can save scripts. So I want to show you how you can save states and load states and do the same visualization graphically for a different data set. So for that, we use the save state feature. I usually go one up, so I have all of these in one, and this is my save state. I could just give it a name, test viz. It will extend it with pvsm, Paraview state file. So that will have saved that. I can now either start with a new one, and I'm going to show you that. So I can now exit Paraview, open Paraview again, and that will enter an empty Paraview. I now don't open the file, but I load a state. So I go in here, load that state. I say, okay, use the state files, file names that are in that state, and it will open that file. It will open the pipeline, and it will run through the pipeline. So in the end, when this has finished, and it has finished reading everything in, you will be presented with exactly the same layout and data evaluation that you had before. So it's easy to get back to where you were. It's complaining about the missing parameter files, missing result files, because it doesn't have the averaged results on the 99 time steps, but only on the last one. So this is where we left off. This is exactly where we left off, so we can now simply continue on that. But what if I wanted to do the same for the mid-size mesh? So let's do this again. I open this, I load the state, and now I don't click OK, but I say, OK, so choose file names. And that will give me, for all the files that I've read in, if you have read in more than one file, then that will give you more than one file name. So I now open that, and I go to the file name that I want to load, which is now a different one, which is now the mid-tet foam. Yeah? So I click that. It will do the same thing. It will run a bit longer now. So we may have to wait a bit longer for that data to load, because it's now the medium file, which is twice as long, twice as big, a bit more than twice as big, so we expect it to load half as quick. So this has finished now, and you see that, well, you don't see a lot of a difference because it is very similar data. So what if you want to compare the two cases? The state file helps us with that as well. So we can load the same state file again and select a different case. So in this case, I want the course one again. So I could have just kept with the one that is saved, but just to make sure, I now select the transient course TED foam and I load that. And you see it will create the same pipeline again. So we now have the transient mid TED foam with that pipeline, and we have the transient course TED foam with that pipeline. So it will create the same pipeline again and start reading in that data. So this has finished now. And you see it's now showing you the newly read data. So it has activated what we just loaded. But I can now switch between the two. So if I switch this on and this on, oh no, not here. I need to select the graph, for example. If I want the other curves in there, so if I want the other apex curve in there, I can switch that on. I will need to do a bit of manual adjustment by deselecting all the other things here, because it has deselected. It has selected too much. Let's try to select everything again. So switch this on, give it a new name, WSS magnitude. This is the apex, and this is mid. I can also give this a different line style, so I can make that dashed if I want to. So you have all the different typical features that you would expect. So let's make the mid files in purple and the purple dashed, and the mid mesh in purple, the coarse mesh in green, and the apex dashed, and then we'll be able to distinguish between the two. So this one will be also purple. No, I don't know which purple I used. I think it's this one. That's a slightly different purple. That's fine. And the sinus going to be green, which is a slightly different green for that. So the sinus, no, I didn't do what I said I'd do. So, but let's switch the sinus on here as well. We need to switch everything else off again, and the WSS mag on, and then this is sinus mid, and the sinus is the mid should be dashed, shouldn't it? And it should be green. Well, whatever. So let's make this a different green and make it dashed. So you see that you can easily compare the two in this setup. And if I wanted to compare the fine one, I would simply load this state again and then plot all these against each other, and you see how that would give you a nice idea of where the developments are. So for the apex region, you see there's not a lot of difference between the coarse and the medium mesh. In the bulbous region, you do see a difference, but it is from 55 to 58. So we are under 10% on the maximum here already. And hopefully when you compare that with a fine one, it will be even closer to that. But I will leave that to you to compare the fine one to this and to select other properties that you want to compare this with. So you could look at the OSI, you can look at other parameters that you can visualize like this. So in a project like this, very often we will want to have these nice, colorful visualizations, but very often we want curves as well. Another thing that you can do is you can split these views. So I can, for example, now select this one, and if, let's say, I want to compare 3 different things in this, then I can split this again. So I say render view. I now want to render, so which one have I rendered here? This is the coarse one, so I want the mid one in this. So I want to show all of it. There is a link camera feature. So if I do right click and link the camera, and I link the camera to this view, then I get the same view in both. I can now select the same parameters here, wall shear stress magnitude, or let's go for the OSI. I think we see more difference in the OSI, but for that I need to go into the last time step. So in the last time step, I can now select the OSI here, and I can select the OSI for this one. Okay, I need to switch these two off. So now I have a direct comparison between those two. And you can see if I adjust that, yeah, you see a small difference here. See that this is a bit higher. You see this changes. Yeah. So now that is a neat comparison. I can put other filters in there. So for example, if you want to visualize time, then you can use an annotation filter and put the time up here. I can also put an annotation filter or I can edit the time filter in this case. So format time. I could say, for example, this is the coarse one. So I could say, okay, coarse. Oops, that's not what $F. So coarse, and I can put an annotation filter on here. And I say this is fine, mid. I need to put that annotation filter switched on here. Yeah. So you get the idea with what can you see in this by switching the eyes on and off. So I can put both annotations in one plot here, but that's not what I want. Yeah. Coarse, mid, 6 seconds, and that gives you a nice direct comparison between the two. Yeah. So if I wanted to plot this now, let me switch. I can't switch that to off. So let me switch that away. So if you want 3 of them, you can adjust the width and arrange them nicely. Yeah. But you can now go for the screenshot comp OSI, save both views, And that will now give you a nice screenshot of these two. Obviously, this is not neatly arranged yet, so you want to do a bit of housekeeping and cleaning this up. So for example, if you compare OSI and OSI, you could basically switch this one off. So you could switch this legend here off, because you don't need the legend in both, and so on. But this is the basic principles on how you can get these comparisons done. I can put the line chart view on here and switch these different things on. The one problem with this is you will now have to redo all the annotation, because if you switch the line chart off, it will delete all the settings that you did manually. So don't switch the line chart off, just move it to a different place. That was the mistake I made right now. But you get the general idea, and keep in mind that you can save states and go back. So there's not a lot of, the undo function can be a bit tricky. So once you have something that you think is all right as a starting point, you can save that as a state and always go back to it. The undo function does not always work as expected in a pipeline like this, because some of these operations are not reversible. But what we're doing here should actually work. So this is what I want to talk to you about today, and play around with this Paraview. Post-processing, I personally find it is a lot more powerful than anything you get built in ANSYS. It is a slightly different workflow, but once you're used to it, it is an extremely powerful post-processor.